Hi, and welcome back to Spanish Unscripted. My name is Christina, and I wanted to tell you a little bit more about the Spanish Unscripted family, basically my family, and a little bit about their bilingual journeys. So I am married to a man from the United States. He is predominantly an English speaker, but like many Americans, he did study Spanish. He took 2 or 3 years of Spanish in high school and college, but he'll tell you himself he doesn't speak Spanish from that instruction. We always had a plan that he would become bilingual, but he never really had the need, given that I speak English. And so he's really never learned how to speak it fluently. When my daughters were young, he did read to them in Spanish quite a bit. And as the picture books at that point were easy to understand, he had no trouble reading them. But as they wanted to read more difficult books, he had a harder time with the vocabulary and understanding what they were about. And so that practice has kind of dropped off. We also have tried one person, one language. He's very supportive of my daughters becoming bilingual, so we have tried different things. And so we've tried one person, one language, Opal. And a lot of people say it works well for them. For us, it didn't really seem like a good fit because he felt like he was out of the loop a lot of times. Like I would speak in Spanish to my daughters and he didn't know what was going on. And then he and I would kind of lose our connection because I'm trying to speak to him in Spanish, even though he doesn't know what I'm saying. So maybe that's a method that works well for some families, but definitely did not work well for us. So at this point, I'm primarily the Spanish speaker in our home. There are times when we're doing some of these activities when he will participate and he will speak in Spanish. There are times when I will speak to him in Spanish and he will understand what I'm saying. So he's not at a level of zero Spanish, but he's definitely the least fluent in our family. The next most fluent after me is my 12-year-old. She started out as simultaneous bilingual, just like I did. She learned English and Spanish as a baby all the way up until 3. She spoke a lot of English and Spanish. I would say it was very equal. Then I think she started to realize that I was about the only person in her life who spoke Spanish, and she started to speak more and more English. In order to help with that, we actually enrolled her in a Spanish immersion preschool. She attended there for 2 years, and that was very helpful for her to hear other people speaking in Spanish. And then when she hit elementary school, she actually went to kinder, first, and second in a dual language school, similar to the one I taught at. Hers was a 90-10 model. So in kindergarten, it was 90% Spanish. In first grade, it was 80% Spanish. And in second grade, it was 70%. Although at that point, we were doing virtual school. This was the second year of COVID, or the first full school year of COVID. And the instruction, it was very experimental at that point. But she was still getting a lot of Spanish. When she started 3rd grade, that's when we started homeschooling. And as I mentioned in my video, it got harder for me to keep the Spanish up. And so I feel like her Spanish has dropped off a little bit. But she herself will tell you that she is bilingual. She understands almost everything I say. In fact, I don't think she ever asks me to repeat anything in English. So she has a very strong understanding of what I'm saying. She attempts to speak in Spanish. She has a very hard time conjugating verbs. And I think the biggest thing with my my oldest daughter, is that she needs more Spanish input. So if I could just keep providing it or look for more opportunities for her to hear Spanish, then she might be able to apply it and speak it herself and generate it herself. So that's my 12-year-old. My 9-year-old, she also started simultaneous bilingual. She spoke both languages growing up. In fact, I would say she spoke more Spanish than her older sister when she was very little. And then same deal, around the age of 3, she started to realize that she was kind of the only one speaking Spanish. And I think even sometimes she'd speak in Spanish to people and they wouldn't know what she was saying. And so she was like, oh, I need to switch. Like kids know how to do that. And and then she also went to a Spanish immersion preschool, but she didn't go for as long, only a few months. And then she went to a couple of English speaking preschools. And so right from that point, from about the age of 3 on, her Spanish input was significantly less than my older daughter. And then she has only ever homeschooled. She's never been to any school, much less a dual language school. And now we unschool. And so again, we're having a hard time finding ways to incorporate Spanish without a curriculum. However, she does know how to read in Spanish. She doesn't always know what she's saying, but because Spanish is such a phonetic language, she can decode the words, right? She can read the words. So she does know how to read in Spanish, and she does understand me at least 50% of the time. I wish I really knew exactly how much it was, but I would say 50 to 75% of the time she knows. But it's very difficult for her to produce Spanish, and she often will code switch, or she'll say almost everything in English and then say a word in Spanish. But what's encouraging to me is that she wants to speak more Spanish, and she is interested in learning. She's also learning French right now, which has a lot of similarities. And so as long as she wants to keep learning, I will keep teaching it to her. And hopefully we can get her at least to the level where my older daughter is. And then eventually that they will both be fluently bilingual, which is my overall goal. But that's a little bit about my family and kind of what the Spanish Unscripted household is like, and as far as our language abilities. And I hope that that level of Spanish continues to increase here in our home. And I hope that the Spanish in your home also increases and that you're having a good time with our activities. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.